Welcome to the Gems Podcast with Shom, a podcast about beat digging, records, and other things. Today, I'm joined by Diallo Riddle, actor, producer, director, and sometimes DJ.
Sometimes DJ. I'm going to form a collective called the Sometimes DJs. Uh, and it will just, we'll be like too many DJs, except we're only there sometimes.
This podcast may lean more on your sometimes DJ and podcasting knowledge than your other things you do.
Appreciate it. I'm dying to talk about it.
For our audience, you may know Diallo from his work on Sherman's Showcase, Southside, Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, countless other productions, or heard his excellent podcast called The One Song Podcast. Thanks for joining me, brother.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. We're so excited to talk music that anytime, especially with you, you have a great podcast. And we were saying before we started here, we have a mutual friend, Greg Dawson, who performs under the name of Keys and Crazy and many other names. But that dude is awesome. Big fan of his music.
One of my best friends in this world. He's the one who gave me the idea for this podcast. And so, I'm glad we're talking today.
It is dope. Yeah.
All right. So you're one of those people who do many things, as we said in the intro. Filmmaker, writer, DJ. Which came first for you career-wise?
That's a great question. I would argue that writing came first because in kindergarten I made a picture book called the True Book of Dinosaurs, because all those other books were lying to you, clearly. And they were nice enough to actually put in the library next to actual books, and I think that's what got the writing urge going for me. I remember in third grade I wrote a 50-page novel called Royce Riddle, and it was my attempt to write a James Bond character who was black who infiltrated Nazi Germany. Now, I never got into how a black guy was able to infiltrate Nazi Germany, but it was really solid writing, and I was very proud of it. He posed as a waiter a lot. I remember that actually. But yeah, I think I've been writing almost since the beginning. And the acting sort of came along because Bashir and I, we met in college and we were trying to cast some things that we had written, and I kept trying to tell the actors, and I was sort of doing a thing you're not supposed to do, which is giving line reads. So I was like, we sort of see the character be like, oh, yeah, but I was making people laugh, and immediately that gave me the bug, and so I started acting in some of the stuff that we were writing as well. Fast forward, and actually going back a few years, I started DJing in college because I needed the money, and I lost my job in the law library. So I was like, well, I go to parties, so maybe I could get paid to be at the party. And so I started DJing. I remember I took my meager funds. I went down to Roxbury because I was in school in Boston, and I took my money and I bought a couple of 12 inches. And I remember I bought Resurrection 12-inch by Common, back when you use Common Sense. Shook Ones. I was very early to the Shook Ones and Temperatures Rising for Mobb Deep. When I see people throw their 90s parties and everybody's playing like SWV Week, I'm like, listen, if you're going to play SWV, play what we actually played in the 90s. We played the Anything remix with Wu-Tang. We didn't play slow jams and parties. That's something that y'all Gen Z people like to do that I do not understand. And I want to talk about that because I feel like the producers and the DJs are complicit right now. I feel like we're playing slow jams and really introspective rap songs in parties and wondering why nobody's dancing to this stuff and why they want to hear all the songs from the 2000s. Like, getting a crowd of people to move is like crafting a good joke. It's not easy, but when it's done right, it's cathartic. And and I also feel like let's take some of these TV shows out of the comedy category because they're not making me laugh. As you can see, I've got a lot on my mind.
All fair comments. I have to ask you about those 12 inches. I was going to ask you about your early days of record collecting.
Yeah.
Those are fantastic choices. On this podcast, that's kind of all we talk about, Mobb Deep, Common Sense. Was that the version that had the Large Professor remix?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the Resurrection that I have has both the Large Professor remix and what they call the Extra P remix. It's the Extra P remix with that amazing sample. I'm blanking on what is that sample? Is it called Ice?
Ice by Cleo.
Yes. Amazing track. Still one of my favorite hip hop tracks of the 90s. That remix is outstanding. I don't even know if it's ever been released on MP3, but I'll tell you, if you knew to play that You could actually get a party to move up in Boston to that remix. That remix was so good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the band was Clear and the song was Ice. And yeah, I mean, it's one of my
I didn't know I
personal
was going
favorite.
to be referencing that. Oh, this is going to be Deep Dive City. I love this.
I mean, I feel like it makes me more comfortable that we could talk this way. I mean, I feel
Yeah,
like
man.
you know your shit. Did you ever make beats?
I think, and just to be correct, I think the song is called, is it called Ice? And I think the group is Spirit, and
Okay.
the album is Clear.
There you go.
Yeah. But we were thinking about the same three words.
Yeah. I mean, you're so knowledgeable about music. DJing makes sense. Did you ever make music?
Man, I've made some music. Never as much as I should have. My college roommate was Ryan Leslie. So
Crazy.
I was sitting there while he had like his big keyboard and his little patches, and I saw him work. And that was back when he thought he wanted to be strictly sort of R&B.
Diamond
But
Girl.
I do remember one time, we were like really in our Wu-Tang phase. I think Cuban Links had just dropped, and I remember I was like, "Yo, I was like, forget all that R&B, man. Let's make a Wu-Tang record." He's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And like we sat there, we did a song called "Chop Your Head Off," and it was like, "Chop his head off, chop his head off." Like it was like so wanting to be like, protect your neck. What if we could go back in time and like find chop your head off?
I did not know you're roommates with Ryan Leslie. I mean, he's a great producer, really talented guy.
Fantastic, man, and just a genius in general. I mean, like he was one of the first people to buy into Bitcoin and had so much Bitcoin at one point, and everybody was laughing at him. And now, like, I don't even want to think about how much money that guy because he never sold. He got into Bitcoin 2011 and he never sold. So, he's always been fine.
Well, that's another crazy fact. So, I mean, that's also wild. I don't
I
know
don't know
where
if
you
I
would
should be
find
putting
that
him on
out.
blast like that, but I don't think anybody thinks he's hurting for money. So there you go.
When I was preparing for this podcast, I learned that you came from an artist family and your
Yes.
father, John T. Riddle, I saw his work and it's incredible.
Thank you.
It's
Why am I saying
unbelievable.
thank you? I didn't make. Yeah. His artwork. He started doing still life like every good art student, and then eventually he figured out that his you didn't want to do art if it didn't have social commentary. The Watts riots, the Vietnam War, those are big impacts on him. So if you look online, you'll see things, and then Pan Africanism took on a great importance. So, I think of him primarily as the work that he did during my lifetime, which are the silk screens and the paintings, covering everything from Sankofa symbols to Harriet Tubman, but I think more importantly his sculpture work, which is primarily owned by museums at this point because he was a collage artist and he was one who would like pull the car over, embarrassing his kids, pulling the car over and collecting junk and trash off the street that he would then put into his artwork. And people were like, "Your dad is that dad who collects trash." It's like that's my trash collecting dad. Like he'd be mad, defensive about it, but no, he's fantastic man and. His art is at in the collections at the Broad and the Hammer here in Los Angeles and the High Museum in Atlanta and all over the world.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I was really happy to see that. I mean, I just enjoyed looking it up. Coming against this kind of backdrop, your father, great artist, how did it impact your interest in pursuing a creative career? Because you have, I would say, an unusual creative career. You just
Yeah,
said you said you should have made beats too. You do like 10 things. You do a lot.
master of none, master of none. No, but seriously, it was because of my father's path that I think I rejected the arts as a legitimate path. You know, it's funny when you're the son of an artist, a real artist, somebody who's actually putting in the time, not just, there were times when my father would do amazing paintings and then, the wrong buyer would say, "Hey, I like it, but could there be more green in it?" It's like, no, this is what I do. Um, and so to that point, we had feast or famine. I remember like, some years he'd sell a lot of work and then we would go to the Sizzler, and then other years I was wearing the same sweater every day. Like we were broke. We were broke, but we were very rich in knowledge and rich in self-worth. And so the fact that we didn't have much money I never felt bad about that. Now, what I did want was like my parents to feel like they could buy nice things come Christmas. You know what I mean? So I always told them that I was going to use my intelligence to go to Wall Street. And indeed, when I went to Harvard, my intent was to pursue that. And I was an economics major at first, and I was going somewhere around the sophomore year at Harvard, I realized that my heart wasn't in it. And I've said before, it's almost like coming out of some closet, so to speak. You come out to your parents, you're like, you know what, Dad, I don't want to be a stockbroker, but maybe I can still make $1 million and set you and Mom up. And he was like, son, I want you to do what makes you happy. So at that point, I switched to history because I'd always been interested in history, going back to Royce Riddle, the World War II spy. And that had always been a natural interest to me. So I got out of sort of like the econometrics and sort of like the math and science of it all, and I pursued the arts. And my parents always supported me. Neither is around these days, so they didn't see me, as Pete or as somebody said, didn't make it long enough to grasp the gold ring. Who said that? Some rapper said, "Mom and Dad didn't stick around to see me grab it." It's one of my favorite rappers, and I can't think of who
A
has that.
Southern rapper?
No, I want to say it's East Coast. Departed life just a little too soon. Didn't see me grab the plug too famous. De La Soul. De
Okay.
La Soul. Anyway, I say that just to say that I did start pursuing the arts sort of against my own intuition because I do think that I have an ear for great music, and I think I have a gift for writing comedy, and I think I have quite honestly, a lot of visions for things that I want to exist in the world, and that's why I often try to direct some of the things that I write. Um, and I'm proud to say I'm a member of all three guilds: writer, actor, director. So I sort of came into it from, I think, the purest point of view, which was that I just wanted to see things exist that didn't already exist because I knew that it would please my tribe and my friends and my family. And the stuff wasn't out there. And so I think that's how I came to do what I do. I will say this. Sherman Showcase was in some ways a very pure piece of art because it allowed me to write original songs. I'm proud of the role that I played in writing songs like Time Loop, and I've always given her credit. Bashir's sister wrote all these wonderful lyrics and melody for "Drop It Low for Jesus." Um, and then we partnered with Fonte, who's a big fan of our comedy, and that he was able to come through and sort of produce a monster song, adding what he brought to the mix. And I really like the collaborative spirit. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why I can wake up some days and just be an actor or just be a director or a podcaster or a writer, because I truly do like to get in the trenches with people and make things special. Um, I do wish I understood Ableton better so that I could produce some of the songs I have in my head. In this phone, I've got like voice memos on everything from post punk and hip hop to pure dance track to weird songs like Everybody's Ballin', which I eventually made into a song on Sherman Showcase, which shut down the House of Blues when we performed it live earlier this summer. We performed that live at the House of Blues. So, I'm going to get the chance to do a lot of stuff and just keep pushing.
I love that. One of the most notable things I learned about you is that on the Fallon show, Late Night with Jimmy
Right.
Fallon, you helped to create the moment with Obama, Slow Jam the News, which
Yeah, Slow
was
Jam the News. And by the way, that was the last time that I was involved in Slow Jam the News because the first time we actually did Slow Jam the News, I want to say on the very first episode of Jimmy Fallon. Now, to give Jimmy credit, because he's a comedic guy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he always gets credit for it. He was like, I want to do a segment, and it's like I read the news, but I do it in a slow jam way. So Bashir and I went to our desks, and I remember I listened to a bunch of Usher, and we
okay.
went and we did that song, and it was one of the first viral hits for Jimmy Fallon. And here's what's interesting: me just trying to be a songwriter. The first couple of times we did that, we changed the actual music for Slow Jam the News every single time we did it. So every single time I was going down to Questlove in the basement and like, hey man, so this song is gonna sound more like this. And like every single time we would try and reinvent the wheel. Till eventually Jimmy was just like, I like the song for the very first one, but we did a whole R&B song about that bank AIG failing. You know what I mean? Can we talk about AIG? Like it was like I think back on how ambitious we were in the early days of late night with Jimmy Fallon, like because I think most of us weren't fathers yet. I don't think I was a dad yet. I think my wife to be was pregnant, so I had to figure out getting married and figuring out fatherhood and all that stuff. But like we worked long hours to try and get that show to be what I think it was for a very long time. Because people forget, like when Jimmy took over late night, nobody thought that show was going to amount. People, there were a lot of doubters, I'll say. And then at some point, we looked up and we were the number one show in late night, and we had the roots, and we were just having a blast. So it was a good time.
I think that's amazing. I think the part about putting Barack Obama in that light was unbelievable.
Yeah. And he was the coolest dude ever. I mean, like when he walked through, I remember they cleared the room except for me, Jimmy, Bashir, and not even Quest. Quest wasn't there. It was Black Dot, and then all like the army of Secret Service guys come in, and then Barack just kind of bounced it. He was like, "What's up? How's it going? Let's do it." And it was so his timing was perfect. He was so gracious. He like shook our hands a bunch of times. He's like, "Your name's Diallo Bashir. That's cool." Like the whole thing was cool. It's hard to remember that was only about 10 years ago, but that was like when it was really cool to be the president. I don't know if I want to be any
I mean, it's
politicians.
your life, but I mean, it's the first black president. It's sometimes I am such a fan of Obama and
Yeah,
everything that he represents. I mean, people could agree or disagree on political stuff. That's cool, whatever. But he's the first black president, and it means so much, like to society.
yeah.
And I just think it's unbelievable. I remember going to a bar in Brooklyn. It's like a little bar called Tip Top Bar, and in the back there's an altar with Obama, like candle, right? I just thought it was so great.
It's
And it was like
funny.
older
Yeah.
man there. I just thought like, yeah, it means a lot to people.
Brother, I'll tell you this. That was like an ironic uh, ode to the idea that we had formed a cult around Obama. Now we know what it actually looks like when people form a cult around a politician. I'm just so sick of politics and everything. But I'll say that when my parents were born, black people could not even vote in the South. So when his election happened, there were people who had gone from not being able to vote to being able to see somebody look like family in that office. So that meant a whole lot. And I dream of a day that there'll be somebody who comes along who personally inspires me to freaking want to, get out and do something. I think there is a place in society for leaders, and that's what inspires people at the grassroots level. So that's about as political as I'll get today. But it was fun writing music for the president, and writing something that was in my brain, and then I was like, here you go, Mr. President, and then he would say the joke, and I'd be like, oh yeah, he nailed it. His timing was impeccable. He had great comedic timing. So those are good times.
So anyone who listens to this podcast, I mean, it's a podcast about beat digging. They probably listen to the One Song podcast.
I hope they do.
What was the inspiration for such a in-depth show?
So I did an episode of Snoop Dogg's World's Dumbest Criminals or whatever it was called. I forget what it was called. But I had the people behind the camera laughing. And one of the people worked for Kevin Hart because Kevin Hart produced that show too. And he was like, "Yo, have you ever thought about doing a podcast?" And I was like, you know, I have not. I was like, I don't even really listen. At that point, I think with the exception of like Serial, I hadn't even listened to a lot of I was not a person who listened to podcasts often. So late to the game. I've been on podcasts, but never had thought of hosting. Um, they wanted me to do a podcast with like a couple of really young female Gen Z tastemakers. And honestly, I was just like, I don't know if that's. I was like, hey, I know this is sort of the opposite of what you're looking for. Bashir, I really couldn't do it with because they wanted somebody who was already online, already had a following. But I was like, I'll tell you who I do follow online, who I think is great. This guy Luxury, who talks about samples and interpolations. And I was like, what if I think he's a cool guy. We haven't hung out much, but like if we have chemistry, what about doing a show with him? So I met him. I was like, oh, dude, like we were supposed to talk for like 10 minutes. And I think we ended up talking for 2 hours. And so I was like, oh, me and him definitely have tons of chemistry. So I introduced him to the Heartbeat people. It took him about 2 years to put the deal together. But by that point, we were all coming out of COVID. So it's about 2023. and then we just launched. And I feel like it's been one of the most pleasant professional surprises I've ever had. Like, we just recorded our 100th episode. So that's 100 songs that we've broken down over the course of that show. That makes me really happy because I feel like every episode we talk about like a very beloved song, and hopefully we get you to hear it in a new way. Because we talk about how it was made, who made it, stories behind it, and then we take the stems and we play you just the bass line, just the drum track, a sample if it's there, the synths. I find that I love the keyboards and the synths. I never realized how much I'm paying attention to what the keyboards got going on so many songs.
It's it's a big part of the inspiration for this show. And the fact that you guys dig so deep into some songs that are not even that popular. I mean, I would call some of them underground. People want to listen to about it. And I was like, well, if they can do something so great, I could focus on something in my own lane and people might like it. So, I mean, appreciate the inspiration.
I mean, here's the thing. We've done Toxic by Britney Spears, but we've also done Teardrop by Massive Attack. I'll tell you, Toxic's got a lot more listens and a lot more downloads. So we always have to balance it. It's almost like how Steven Soderbergh says he does his movies. He does one independent for himself, and then he'll put Clooney in something, and then he hopes to have like a big reception. That's sort of how we do our shows. Like we try to do one for everybody. What was a recent one that we did like that? We did Olivia Rodrigo, Good for You. And here's the thing I think that we do right, which is that we never come at it like, sneering at it like the guy at the record shop who's too cool to listen to anything that's not like strict. Like we always say, like, even if it's not our particular favorite genre, we're always going to come to it as appreciative that this song is special. And, what if you were a fan of the song, what do you probably love or like about this song? Like I feel like that's how we've always come. I can only think of one example of us doing the show where I came away thinking less of the artist. And
You
I'll
don't have
tell
to
you,
share which one.
honestly, I didn't know how Steely Dan had been taking advantage of other jazz musicians like chord progressions, but then when hip hop came to sample them, they were charging 100% in the publishing. I was just like, this is insane. This is insane. You guys borrowed from Horace Silver, but you can't let, Lord Tariq and Peter Guns, you can't give them 1% of publishing. Like, this is insane. So that was a double standard. Wasn't crazy about that, but almost every other case, I didn't really understand. I never was huge into metal, but the Ozzy episode really opened my eyes to how much I would probably have listened to metal if I had been raised in a different community.
I think the one that I particularly love, and I think fans of this podcast would really enjoy, is the one with Patrice Rushen.
Oh,
It
so
was
good.
unbelievable. I mean,
First
for
of
everyone
all,
to
can you
listen to it.
believe she's 70? Like she's
That's
70.
the thing. That's the thing. It was inspiring. It's like when I look at my future stages of life, the way she was so articulate and
Yes.
insightful, and she spoke about the past, but she kind of held it all in this very objective light, and it was hyper intelligent, and she's just a sheer talent. Most people cannot articulate their talent like that. She can articulate it in a way that's kind of easy to appreciate.
I think that comes from the fact that she's a teacher. She's still teaching at USC. So, she's had to come up with these explanations for why certain things work. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of us, even the people among us who liked her, didn't know just what a musician she was, and that she was playing so many of the instruments and the Rhodes keyboard on some of these fantastic songs. And I mentioned what I said. I was singing number one to people for years, saying, "Who does this song? Who does this song?" Because there's no lyrics; it's an instrumental. And to find out it was Patrice Rush, I was like, "Of course it is." Like, I love this woman. To find out that like she was Prince's muse when he was coming up, and that he wrote some of his biggest songs with her in mind. I want to be your lover. Come on, man. Like, this is a woman who was considered the best by, somebody who we all consider the best. So, and she looks and she sounds and she thinks great to be at that. I mean, like to me, she's gold in that sense.
Yeah. Thanks for kind of bringing her current state to life. Like, I've
Yes.
only looked at her going backwards and appreciating these
Yeah.
great records. You brought her now, and it just shows like you can keep evolving.
Dude, to hear her lay out how she was playing "You Remind Me" is just remarkable. You know, her brain is just sharp, and when she smiles at you, you feel like you've been gifted something. I don't know. That woman's got she's got magnetism for days.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a performer for a reason.
Absolutely.
I love these tangents. What's one of the wildest tangents you've gone on while doing the podcast?
Man, gosh, that's a great question. Because you know what? I hate to say it. We cut a lot of tangents out of the show. You know, like if we were allowed to just post everything we recorded, it'd probably be about a 2 hour podcast instead of an hour. We usually end up cutting those things and saving them from other times. Like I remember on the Beyonce episode, we sort of went down this path. Was it the Dolly Parton? Was it the Jolene episode? It might have been the Break My Soul episode, but we just went down a path of like Chicago House that we just couldn't use it all. You know, there've been even weirder ones where like I think one of us mispronounces a word. It's like, hey, did you say so and so? And like all of a sudden we're talking about, this thing over here. You know, the Dilla episode was hard to edit because there was so much we wanted to say about him. The song we used was Running by the Far Side. But it's if you listen to our show, we're gonna break down everything about Running by the Far Side, but we were going to talk about the Far Side, and we're going to talk about Dilla, and we're going to talk about how they met, and which came first, the sample or the song idea that the song is about running. You know, because the song, if you know the Brazilian, the bossa nova song he
Dan
samples,
gets, yeah.
yes, that song is about running, and then they wrote a rap about running, and then he went back, I think, and mixed in the run, run, like so. My question was like, who came up with the idea that this song was going to be about running in the first place? Was it Dylan because of the song he sampled? Like, there's just so much stuff that goes into these discussions, and every now and then the writers or the rappers or the engineers or somebody will hit us up in the comments and be like, well, actually, and we love that because we want to get the record straight. At the end of the day, I did study after I dropped out of economics. I went into history and luxury is writing a book, and we want to get history right. You know, there's nothing worse than getting the story wrong and having it spread throughout the ages wrong. Like, we want to get the story right.
Yeah, I could see the way your background in history helps with many things. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm going to play a game with you, and I think this will be easy for you.
Okay.
Name your top 5 dream guests on the One Song podcast.
Ooh. Okay. I love this. Wait, I'm sorry. Would this be a person coming on the show or the artist that I want to cover on the show?
Could be either,
Can
and
I
they
can
got
I
to
tell
be
you the
alive.
artists? Can I tell you our white whales? Because we do try to save the show for songs that we can find somewhere out in the ether, the stems for. Because we just think that's an important part of like being able to say, this is the basis on the song. This is the, even if there are no live instruments, Delight, Groove is in the Heart, there's not one live instrumentalist on that song. It's all pieced together samples. But even there, we're going to find every sample. We have a couple of white whales for the show, so to speak. Those things that we like spend hours and hours trying to find. One is definitely Bjork. I would love to do a Bjork song. I don't care which Bjork song it is. Those stems are really hard to find. Um, but I mean, like Human Nature, Army of Me. Is it Army of Me? Did I get that right? Yeah, Army of Me, Human Behavior, Alarm Call. These are songs that like, absolutely give me chills. So she's one person I'd love to have on the show. Maxwell, I think one of the most underrated modern falsettos of all time. Almost any of his Hang Sweet album, I think, would be an amazing episode of the show.
Also, his work with Sweetback, pretty good.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what time it is. I think what's interesting about our show is that we will do something about Ozzy, and maybe, when we do the one more song segment, which is just we throw out the name of a cool song, we might do something really obscure like Mission of Burma. But then at the same time, we'll do SWV on our upcoming episode. We'll do, I think it probably just dropped. We'll do Junior Mafia. Like, there's so many, obviously we'll do the Stevie Wonders and the Bruno Mars and like sort of like the big songs that like, rock every wedding that comes along. But we also like to do those sort of like songs that the music nerds really want to hear because we are music nerds. So, I think Bjork, Maxwell, Fiona Apple. is another one who I would love to. I would just like to hear her isolated vocals. You know what I mean? Like, and we know that there's AI and there's software that can do, but we like to find the actual stems because there's usually stuff in the stems that didn't make the cut. One of my favorite episodes is our Al Green episode because in that episode, there's a whole section of Let's Stay Together that didn't make the cut. And so if you weren't in the studio that day, it's not like there's an extended version of that song. You've never heard it. And so that's why when we get to the show, we're like, let's play something that people have never heard. He got a lot more rallying and gospel-y before after the fade out. So those are the kind of moments where I'm like, man, nobody's ever heard this. Or like when we did Tribe Called Quest and we did Scenario, and there were a lot of samples in Scenario that at the last second, Q-Tip decided, you know what, we don't need that sound in there, and they got muted. And I was just like, oh my God, nobody's heard this since he was, I think they did that at Electric Ladyland. And nobody's heard this since, uh, Bob Powers, and Q-Tip decided it was out.
That's so wild. You're making me want to listen back to some of this older episode. My dream guest for this podcast, which is about beat digging. So, I mean, it's a pretty small list of people that know about this.
Uh-huh.
Barack Obama.
Okay.
I just feel like he knows his shit.
He's going to surprise you with at least one super deep cut. For sure.
Chad Hugo.
Yep.
Primo.
Love Chad. Love
DJ
Chad.
Premier.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Premier is probably my favorite producer of the 90s. It's always like, is it Primo? Is it Pete Rock? Is it Q-Tip? There's always like this. Dre is obviously in most people's category. For me, it's Primo. I mean, if I'm just being 100% real, if only because that Group Home album hit so hard when it came out, and we didn't even, no offense, we didn't even like sweat Malachi in Group Home. But no, I feel like he listens to this, and I'm gonna just. It's not about you. I'm just saying that we love them beats. Those beats on Group Home and Jeru. I mean, like those. It's so pure. It's so good.
It was a lesser known cut on the Group Home album, Baby Paw.
Bruh, listen, Baby Paw is my favorite song, and it was back then. I'm not a Johnny Come Lately. Baby Paw is, to me, such a feat, such an accomplishment. I can honestly, you go from the dice game,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, fuck that. He says fuck that like 12 times.
It's a hard one to put on repeat.
I don't know what it's like. A Spanish song comes in, and then the Bob James sample comes in. Walking through the desert. Oh my God, that song is amazing, bro. That song is like four things in one. It's sicko mode, but it's not sicko mode for the radio, man. It's like it's a mishmash. But you are at that dice game. That dude gets angry. The music wafts in from like an apartment above you, and then the Bob James comes in. Like you get a full afternoon of stuff on just Baby Paw. It is brilliant. It is a brilliant composition.
I like your style. Other interviewees, Sade.
Yeah, no, we would do Sade in a second. So first off, I've always said Sade. Sade. If you look at her earliest vinyl pressings on there, it says pronounced Sade, which is interesting to me because there's no R in there, but also like it's like a part of a longer. Is it Nigerian? I think it's part of a longer Nigerian name or so. So technically, I guess it's supposed to have been Sade all this time, but I'm going to continue to say Sade because it sounds more like
Sade. So I don't know what.
Because she's British, though. Like how the British will be like, so Naz.
Yeah.
So we got Naz at the studio. Like they're all over the map. They put R's where they don't belong, and they put the long where there are R's. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah.
No, Sade would be amazing. Sade stems are notorious. I mean, that's why she doesn't get sampled in hip hop that much because A, she won't clear it, and B, nobody can find them joints. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I like to hear what other people who are maybe not producers think about. I really like the actor Walton Goggins. He's like one of my favorite actors. I feel like he knows his shit. I just feel like he does.
He was very surly on White Lotus. I really like him on Invincible. He's hilarious there. The cartoon, so you won't see his face, but I think Walter's just having the best career. I mean, I think to be considered a sex symbol this late in the game, that's pretty sweet on his behalf.
I'll just say
he can do no wrong.
He goes
Huh?
all out, you know?
He does go all out. He
All
goes
right.
all out. Fantastic actor. I mean, what can you say about it? That's a very good gift. I guarantee he's got a good record collection.
For
Believe it or
sure.
not, I think me and Seth Rogen could probably talk about stuff because every now and then he'll do like a needle drop on some weird stuff on one of his projects, and I'm like, I think that dude's a head. I think that dude's one of the heads.
All right. I'm going to play a word association game with you.
Okay.
And these are, it's not going to stump you. I think you'll like them.
Okay. Now that you set the now that you set the expectations so high, let's go.
Digger Planet's Blowout Comb album, Burrow
Yes.
Check, featuring Guru. Any personal reactions to it, emotional reactions, anecdotes, where you were in your life?
Burrow check was great. I talked about this recently. Burrow check is interesting because I had friends in New York who just did not mess with Diggable Planets. It used to break my heart. And I was like, why don't y'all like this group? And they were just kind of unlike some, to reference Barack Obama, like, I think it was Bobby Rush who was like, oh, no, we don't know who this guy is. We don't know who brought him in here. And they sort of treated Diggable like that. They're like, you just got the sense that Diggable really wanted to be in the same conversation as Tribe and De La and all these people, but like you could tell that they weren't getting love from their city in the same way. And then lo and behold, you find out years later, well, because we didn't have the internet in the same way, um, you know, uh, Ishmael Butler's from Seattle, and I want to say Miss Mecca and Doodlebug, aka C Knowledge, were from Philly or something like that. I'm probably messing up for enough props to Miss Mecca. She's one of my favorite people, and we've been friends on Instagram recently. So shout out to Miss Mec. Um, they weren't from New York, and so when they go to do Blowout Come, they actually move to Brooklyn, and then they do this. And that album is really just a love letter to Brooklyn, and I don't even think it's a diss. Like you hear Ish sort of putting the Ish sound into some of his rhymes the way that Buckshot from Black Moon was. Like you could tell he heard that remix to Crooklyn Dodgers that we all loved. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like. It was actually no, he was on the original Crooklyn Dodgers. That Crooklyn Dodgers remix is also insane. And both of them, those two together are like forgotten tracks of 90s hip hop greatness. But I say all that just to say that Blowout Comb, I was happy to hear Guru hop on Burrow Check because it was like they were getting a cosign from somebody who mattered, somebody who was very Brooklyn. Was it enough to make them like, the favored sons of the city the way that Tribe or other groups were? No, it was also hip hop was in a weird place by 95. Or I guess that album came out in late 94 probably, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like it was in a very different place than when Reaching came out. When Reaching came out, you know, Arrested Development still had radio hits. You know what I'm saying? But like by the time Blowout Come came out, like everything was much darker, much more cynical. Like I don't think if Arrested Development had a album out, I don't even know. But like it was just a very different time in hip hop. Uh, I love that album. I think it's one of the best, most underrated, and I love that it has a cult following today. Um, the Roy Ayers samples and the oh god, Blacks and Blues. Who did that? Bobby
Bobby
Humphrey. Bobby
Humphreys.
Humphrey's samples in there are are phenomenal. They're
Yeah.
great.
And Bob James on there too.
Bob James. Yeah.
I thought it was a very well produced album. And
Yeah.
also, I remember walking to school with that. I just have all these
Yeah.
good memories. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, where it's pretty
Yeah.
cold. And it was just like my like my winter soundtrack, which I just thought was great.
It's a great album. I think that if you think about who produced it, they did a great job. And did Itch produce that album?
Yeah, I believe
He
he did
basically
all
produced
the
that album.
production. I mean, he's a very talented guy.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
he's freaking great. Speaking of SWV, we had Brian Alexander Morgan on the show. And I think there's something about your first album being produced primarily by one dude. Illmatic aside, Illmatic was like a damn producer cipher, so we know that's what that was. But SWV's first album was pretty much produced by one dude named Brian Alexander Morgan, and he sort of helped define what these R&B would sound like. You got to remember, Mary J. like what Puffy and the Hitmen were doing was like having people sing over hip hop classics, and that's very different than what anybody on the West Coast was doing at R&B. I think Brian Alexander Morgan really shaped what pure 90s R&B was with songs like the original Anything, uh, and Rain, and all these songs that are just outstanding. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm being verbose, but you're calling to memory like just the fact that certain artists were able to self-produce or just get one producer to do pretty much the whole album, and they killed it.
I think you said a similar comment on your podcast about the first Far Side album,
Yes,
which I love. Jay Swift, very unusual story that you shared. It's just a bit about like
crazy
how,
story.
yeah. I mean, I want to
Yeah,
find this guy, and I believe he's in
I
Spain,
guess he
and I
lives
want to
in
talk to him.
Spain now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
At least it last when that article came out. I mean, this one guy, that's another album that, like Blowout Comb, you can listen to the first Far Side album. And I'm gonna say something controversial here. I think that at least as far as like a statement of this is who we are, that first album felt more like who they are than the album that they had Dilla on. I mean, like you feel the group splintering on Lab Cabin, but on Bizarre Ride 2, that is every bit of movie that Blowout Comb is. That's every bit of it. Certain albums just felt like movies, and it felt like they had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And Bizarre Ride 2 is just, damn, that album's beautiful, man. I mean,
Yeah.
like the samples, the usages, they he did his job on that. He really did. Can
Yeah.
I can I can I bring up an album that I just rediscovered last week, which is Fushnik. Fu, don't take it personal. I forgot how beautifully layered and almost like a bomb squad way that album is produced. Now we all know that their cultural appropriation is kind of cringe. I don't think we. I thought we. I think in their defense that came across in a '90s world as appreciation. You know,
They weren't
I think
Jamaican. I mean,
nowadays
I know they're from New York, but
they're
they
from New York, but they grew up on Saturday mornings. This is not a thing in Atlanta. I think New York took it for granted that all of us, when the Saturday morning cartoons went off on Saturday, that everybody was getting these kung fu movies. That was not the case in Atlanta. But clearly, Fushnik and Wu Tang, like they just loved watching these movies that came on after, and so there's a bunch of, like I said, it has not aged well. Bizarre Ride 2, The Far Side has not aged well on
yeah.
almost any song. Almost every song on there has one truly objectionable moment. But just from a pure production point of view, that Fushnik, Fu, Don't Take It Personal album is really impressive. I just went back and listened to it. Like certain songs like Ring the Alarm and True Fushnik. Some of those songs they're really interesting in terms of like flipping samples, like flipping the word sample in a Premiere way, while the beat has, like Eric Sermon or, some of these other producers' levels of just complexity that people don't want to spend the money on now, but like in a weird way because it's like a time capsule. It's like a snapshot of what people were doing back then because people just weren't, the samples didn't cost as much to clear, and they just wanted to make the dopest beat. And I think that part of hip hop, unfortunately, is just kind of toast because nobody's spending money on 14 samples on an album cut anymore.
Yeah. Can't be done.
No.
Sampling seems to be getting a bit of a new resurgence, especially with some of the Alchemist work, but
Yep, Alchemist doing it.
you can't make, 3 feet high and rising now. Right. So,
It was to go back to what my father did with the trash he found on the street. He would repurpose, who knows how many little pieces of things into one thing. And hip hop started, after the Biz Markie decision, there was a period, there was a time when you would literally have like, go back and listen to Contract on the World Love Jam, the first song on Fear of a Black Planet. That is a masterful song. And I always say that I became a hip hop fan. I got away from like all the British new wave, like Pet Shop Boys and Swing
Depeche
Out
Mode.
Sister and all that kind of stuff. That was like my love.
Okay.
Duran Duran to this day. Like Martin Gore, half black. Martin Gore is half black.
Yeah.
From Duran Duran, he wrote all the music. Gahan just sang it. That was my primary love, and I liked some hip hop songs. But when Contract of the World Love Jam transitions into Brothers Gonna Work It Out with that Public Enemy word, check free, y'all ready for it? I found it, yeah. Like there's so many samples, and it's a barrage. It feels like an attack. It feels like you're literally under fire.
Yeah, it's chaos. It's like
Pure
you're in a
chaos.
fucking alarm.
Dude, I'm telling you, that when my friend put that CD on, I still remember when I was standing in his living room. He's like, check out the new Public Enemy album. He played tracks 1 and 2 off of Fear of a Black Planet. I knew what I loved. I get chills to this day whenever that transition happens in real time. And nobody ever plays this music in clubs anywhere. Maybe I'll
Sure.
do it the next time I do like a block party somewhere. But like that transition is so pure. I just don't know. I mean, like it sounds like news broadcasts, professor talking, sample from a TV show, sample from Public Enemy. Like the collage is so complete and aggressive. And when it does that Brownsville, blah, 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 like that's the sample for that. Like it's perfection. And I literally was driving around town the other day to bring it full circle to Ableton. I was like, how do I create something that sounds modern but makes people feel like this? Because my problem with a lot of music being produced now is that it's not aggressive enough in the way that I like to be aggressive with my music. You know what I mean? Like I like a little bit of a harder sound. I love what K Tronada is doing. I love what K Tronada is doing in the dance space. And I was like, if I produce something, maybe my take is just that I'm K Tronada with just a little bit more like snap, like a little bit more snare punch in the face shit. Because I do think that that's what's missing. It's missing. I went to hip hop night. They put on some new hip hop song. I won't call out the artist, but that shit killed the dance floor. Like it was way too quiet. It was way too chill, way too slow. I just we're DJs are playing songs that they like to smoke out to, and it's killing the dance floor, y'all. Like let's make some new music. It was never this hard for hundreds of years for our people to dance to new shit. I want to dance to new shit, but these BPMs are nobody's dancing. I'm there. It's just bottle service. I'm there. It's not dancing. Let's get to dancing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, hip hop to start with is dance music, right? To start with. Now
Yeah.
there's all types of hip hop now, but
Yeah,
yeah,
you just give us. It's they make it seem like it was impossible to get people to dance and enjoy the music. And shout out to like I like that post somebody did where it was like I think Pete Rock reposted it. It was like hip hop is no longer a young man's sport, and like all the tracks that he showed were like Method Man and Nas and like all these people who are still putting out albums. And I like all those songs. So I feel like maybe it's on us to just raise our sons and daughters and just be like, hey, it's okay to hit 93 BPM. You know what I mean? Like some of this stuff is just pure mathematics. If it's 92, 93, up to like 103, 104, it can still work.
going back to PE,
Yeah,
my favorite song by Public Enemy, Black Steel in the Hour of Chaos.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. I
Amazing.
mean,
I agree. That is definitely one of my all-time favorite tracks of all time. It just goes so hard, you
yeah,
know? It's such an amazing sample. That's the is that who does that sample? Is that Isaac Hayes?
yeah. Isaac Hayes. Yeah,
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 it's an amazing sample. I love to go back and listen to the samples now, maybe more than I did even back then. A couple I Love Music by Ahmad Jamal is just a beautiful song. It's just
yeah.
a beautiful song. And so to know the Nas and who would that be? Is that P Rock who would
Yeah,
have sampled it?
rock. Yeah,
One of the greatest samplings of all time. Because out of the 8-minute jazz song that is granted beautiful, you took that one little weird little section and you flipped that. That's incredible to me. I recently went back and discovered the song that just to talk about Illmatic. Uh, New York State of Mind might be my favorite rap song of the '90s. To me, it's just I can't play that song loud enough. To this day, I'll be driving down Sunset, passing the Comedy Store, and I'll literally play it just looking to see if anybody knows how cool my music taste is.
I
I
love
still
that.
blast that song. That's primo. That's primo. Just making it look easy. That's the shit I really love. And who I don't think I knew at the time that Q-Tip was the amazing producer he was in the '90s, but his influence and his beats and what he did was so amazing. We recently had Little John on the show to talk about um uh not turned down for what Get Low, to talk
Yeah,
about Get Low. I was shocked to learn that basically Lil Jon produced the 2000s. I did not know this. I thought the 2000s were Just Blaze, Kanye, and the Neptunes. But you have to put Lil Jon on that Mount Rushmore because he did Tell Me When to Go, 40. He
that's a
did
hot one. That's really good. Yeah,
Goodies for Sierra. He did Blow the Whistle for Too Short. Like a lot of those Bay Area songs that gave us the hyphy movement. Because I remember the time there were people from the Bay who were like, "Yo, Crunk is sampling hyphy," and people from Atlanta were like, "Hyphy just supposed to be Crunk." But you find out Lil Jon was behind all that shit. he was doing all that stuff. Shake them dreads. It's all Little John. Little John was doing Snap Your Fingers. He was producing for T-Pain. He was producing for so many people. And then you find out that he produced, this blew my mind. He produced Cableton's tour remix, the one that we all the DJs play. We got in Jamaica, nobody done tour. Jesus
He
began
did
to
that?
began the tour. He did that. Some Atlanta dudes did that. They were called the Dynamic Duo. It's called the Cableton Tour Remix by Dynamic Duo. If you look up who Dynamic Duo is, it says Jonathan Lil John Smith. This is like one of the first things he ever did. You know what I'm saying? He was blowing
Interesting.
people's minds. He was like, I was like, John, do you know how hype Atlanta used to get with Who You With? Your first song with the East Side Boys, got, Who You With? Kid Crow. Who You With? Kid Crow. Yeah, I was like, he was like, but you know who sampled it? And I'm never, he's like, I'll never call him to task. He was like, Dero. He was like, all the hoes jogging, beat steady knocking. He's like, I was like, oh my God, it's the same beat. How did nobody catch that? It's the exact same beat. Ice cream paint job? He's like,
Are you-
yeah, I'm happy for Dero. He's like, he can have it.
I mean,
You
the
know.
things you learn while doing your podcast, I mean, it's crazy. Also, Little John is a hell of a character, underrated, just
He's
overall.
so underrated because people don't know that he produced half the things he produced.
Yeah.
People think he was just the artist, and maybe he produced, like one T-Pain song over here. No, if you go look at that man's catalog, I think his biggest song to date is Usher's "Yeah." But like, you
Yeah.
have to realize that if you look at his catalog, he's producing way more. That Capleton thing is just the tip of the iceberg. He's produced for artists that you never knew he produced for. That's what I can't get over.
All right. Jay-Z, A Million and One Questions.
Great song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great sample. Can I tell you my favorite Jay Z is this is for the heads. So before Reasonable Doubt came out, Jay Z was like on so many DJ Clue and who else was out there? Easy Mo B had mixtapes and CDs. DJ Clue had the CDs. DJ Clue always got the exclusives. He wasn't even really mixing on them, but he had the songs first. But Jay Z had a song, and whose mixtape is that? I want to give props to the. He had a song that sampled an intro from Earth, Wind, and Fire, and the name of the song is "Reach the Top." Do you remember "Reach the Top"?
No.
I gotta reach the top. Give me 2 seconds. I'll tell you exactly
Okay.
whose mixtape it appeared on. 1 second.
I like this mixtape angle because I have another question for you, mixtape wise.
Oh God, I think it's J period.
Okay.
I don't know if it's J period or J Love. I feel like it was a J somebody. Check it. Go on YouTube and look at Jay Z reach the top. That
Okay.
is one of my favorite Jay Z songs of all time. And I remember how disappointed I was because clearly somebody didn't want to pay Earth, Wind, and Fire because there's no way. His verse was great. His flow was like just as good as the Dead President's remix, which I thought, I thought he elevated his flow on the remix versus the album version. And it's just a great song. Jay Z reached the top. Very, very early Jay Z, not Hawaiian Sophie early, like right before Reasonable Doubt dropped it. I remember being disappointed when I heard Reasonable Doubt because I was actually already a Jay Z fan, and there were a lot of songs from that like mixtape, mix CD period that just didn't make the cut. I was like, oh man, Reach the Top ain't on here, and that other song ain't on here. Like, so it just felt like to me, it felt like honestly like a corporate album where like someone made the decision not to pay for a sample or something like that. But obviously with time, I was like, yeah, of course that was a classic.
On the mixtape topic, Biggie
Yeah,
Smalls, Who Shot Ya, original version featuring Keith Murray.
I had it. I had it on a bootleg. Here's the thing, man. I was on the East Coast, so those were the only songs I could really play out. I had grown up in Atlanta. I had family in LA. Personally, I was actually more pop back then because I felt the disdain. You got to realize, like, I would try and play Outkast for. It's easy to forget how hatery New York could be at that time.
Yeah.
I would play Outkast first album stuff. I'd be like, "Yo, check this out." Set a playlist of Cadillac music. Yo, check this out. Crumbling Herb. listen to this remix of Crumbling Herb I have because I worked at LaFace Records. Like I was playing all this. They're just like, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's all right. I had a friend from the Bay Area. They weren't really fucking with Souls of Mischief as much as they pretend they were now. They liked 93 Till, but like that whole album was great. Casual, Fear Itself, that album was
Hell yeah.
fantastic. New York, a lot of New Yorkers just were not fucking with it. And the thing is, I'm gonna pat myself on the back. I didn't cut anything off, so I loved Biggie. You know what I'm saying? Like I liked Biggie back when he was doing songs with Crustified Gibbs. If anybody remembers that dude,
I
you know what I'm
know.
saying? Like the don't go back and listen to it. It's very cancelable. But uh, like I remember Biggie, Party and Bullshit Biggie, pre Ready to Die Biggie was a lot of fun. I got that. I still my favorite Biggie verse is still I got 7 back 11s about 838s 9 9 10 Mac 10s. The shit never ends. Like I loved Biggie. And I just wanted everybody to listen to everything. I wanted people to listen to Concrete Click, which was a group out of Boston at the time. But, very few people remember what I remember. NOG of the Bulldogs, trying to get them to come up to Harvard to play. I booked Wu-Tang before Enter the 36, and they didn't show up. So we had a lot of angry people on the yard that day because by the time they were supposed to show up, I guess Old Dirty got arrested, and so somebody from the organization called me. They're like, "Yeah, they ain't coming." And also, this song is bigger now, so like the money you offered in June ain't the money we're showing up for in September. That's how much movement they had experienced between June and September. I could talk all day about albums I wish had gotten, more pub, but I feel like I'm always going to support artists that I feel deserve more. I thought Tanya Morgan should have gotten more pub. Thought that was an outstanding album. And the song where they sampled the Barry Gibb and Barbra Streisand song. What is that song called? Is it
Guilty?
called? Huh?
Guilty?
Is that the name of their? Yeah, they sampled Guilty.
Yeah.
But
I love
Tanya
it.
Morgan, who Stay Tuned. That's the name of the song. Stay Tuned. The Sunset version was fantastic. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that who is your boy who did he was like the king of mixtapes around 2010, but then he got shown on video getting punched by his girlfriend and he went away forever.
That,
You know what I'm talking about?
I didn't know that.
Ah, well, give me 1 second. Okay, this is worth it. You can cut this to save it for
No,
time. I
it's
just I
fine.
just gotta
People
let you
like
know
this
this.
kind of thing.
No, no, no. Oh man, what is that guy's name? Anything that you find mine. Oh man, I'm gonna hate myself for not remember this cat's
I mean,
name.
this is really obscure knowledge you're dropping. I'm pretty into mixtapes. I have no idea who you're talking to.
You'll recognize the name when I because he was one of the XL's like people to watch in 2010.
Okay.
2010 double XL freshman. Let's see who's on that cover. And then he got punched. This is gonna be trifling. What rapper got punched at Marvelous Marvel? The Panties. Who? Okay, what song did Most Def sample for the Panties? I Love You More and More by Tom Brock. Now.
Oh, okay. I
Love You
didn't
More
know
and
that.
More by Tom Brock.
I mean, this rabbit hole you're going on is crazy.
This is how my brain works because now I have to know who sampled this shit.
That song, "The Panties" by Mos Def, is unbelievably good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
That is a sample of a song called "I Love You More and More" by Tom Brock.
Okay.
I don't know if it's available on MP3, but you should definitely get it off of YouTube because it's a great song. And now I found the name of the rapper I was talking about. The rapper I was talking about, Charles Hamilton. Charles Hamilton had a bunch of really amazing songs on mixtapes at the start of the 20 teens. Pleasant Overthinking is amazing. New Girlfriend music is amazing. The North Pole featuring Max B is amazing. Like this is at a time when I thought Charles Hamilton was going to be making songs with, Jay Electronica. It didn't work out for him because there was a video of him like talking shit to this girl who turned out to be his girlfriend, and she punched him in the face. And then everybody, as the story was told to me, everybody lost respect for him, so we couldn't listen to his music anymore.
Terrible.
Crazy times. This is unhinged. But that was the story, and then you never heard from him again. But I would say if you just like good music and you like a dude who's like rapping, and it was very lo-fi in terms of the mastering and the mix, but it's great music. Pleasant Overthinking, New Girlfriend music, all by Charles Hamilton. Go check it out if you didn't listen back then, and if you've forgotten the name Charles Hamilton, go back and did we do wrong by Charles Hamilton? I don't know.
It's
I don't know.
possible. Also, I mean, just upon reflection, New Girlfriend music sounds like the most soft title of anything I've heard in my life.
Wait,
It's
I'm
just a bit,
sorry. Wait, let me remind myself. Hold on. Hold on. You are.
it's crazy.
Yo,
Like
this shit is
looking back,
hard.
it's
Dude,
crazy.
this is good sampling. Look, I love the art of sampling. Maybe one day I'll finally just go out and get, my little MPC and just play around with it. But this is good sampling, dude. Go check. Start with Pleasant Overthinking. That shit goes so hard. And if you like the panties, you'll recognize the sample right away.
I'll ask you one more question.
Okay.
You can be about whatever you like.
All right.
What do you
Check.
care about in this life?
Oh, damn. What do I care about? Honestly, I'd love to see. I didn't know I was getting into talking about 90s hip hop so much today, but when given the opportunity, I guess I'll always go there. I'll say this. One thing probably the thing I miss the most about the 90s isn't really the music, it's the general overall vibe. People forget that the Cold War was over. I'm not just saying this because I was a teenager. I really mean this. I pray that my kids will have a decade like the 90s because the Cold War was over, so there wasn't the looming threat of, you know, mass human die off. Um, I mean, it's easy to forget. And this is why I want it for my kids. I want them to have a chill decade. The Cold War was over, so you weren't worried about mass annihilation. Uh, the IRA has stopped bombing. Jerry Adams made his peace with the UK, with England. Ehud Barak and Yasser Arafat were at Camp David with Bill Clinton, who, despite, his many flaws, like, was just a chill politician who you just felt like things were happening. The internet was exploding. I actually remember there were books that said, this is the end of history in a good way. Like, we're actually going to just progress as a race of people. And there was talk of, like, because of the internet, there was going to be an endless boom cycle, not a boom bust cycle anymore. So just, and then 9/11 came and ended it all. But here's the deal. Actually, I would say the election of 2000 ended it. And then definitely by 9/11 it was already in the past. But I want my kids to have a decade like that. I would like them to have a period where we're not always having to focus on what politicians are doing because we need to focus on what they're doing. They're pulling crazy shit. We have somebody who might become the world's first trillionaire. I don't like this shit. It all feels gross. It all feels nasty. Nobody wants to talk about it because we've been talking about it for a straight 10 years. I think if you ask me what I'd like, I think we could get back to some good times if we can just agree on what facts are. I think that if we have some agreed upon facts, we might be able to work on solutions. Right now, uh, there's some people who I can't even talk to about music, even though we love music together, because if it strays anything into the world of politics, they're going to tell me some stuff that I just don't believe is true. So I would love there to be some shared facts so that we could all get down again. I want the party to come up. There's so much wrong right now. There's a lot of fun when you get with your friends, you get offline and you get in a public space with your friends and you just start dancing again. You know what I'm saying? Like, so shout out to Mo Bamba. That was a great song. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want some more Mo Bambas. I want some more songs where the second I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's a hit record. I can't wait till midnight when I'm DJing because I know what my song at midnight's going to be. It used to be very obvious what the midnight song is. It has not been obvious for a while now, at least not since COVID. Every now and then a song will poke out. Let's get back to dancing. Let's get back to loving. Let's get back to, the art and having fun with it. I don't need any more songs where people talk about smoking their enemies. I don't need that anymore. Let's have fun. I really want us to get. I thought it was gonna be the Roaring Twenties, man. It's not the Roaring Twenties. This is like I feel like I'm at the gym every day, just trying to make it through my day. I'm not even getting abs for it. So yeah, let's try and have some fun, y'all.
Here's to a 2025 All in the Same Gang remix.
I think it's a wrap on 25. Let's just hope 26 is actually some return to some good shit.
Thanks for joining me, brother.
Hey, I'm blast, man. Thank you for having me on for real.